Welcome, everybody, to another live stream on the Apex Communications Network. As always, I'm your host, John Almacy, sitting in my little quarantine hollow at Walsh University, as they are so graciously allowing me to stay here over the course of this pandemic. We are going to have an interesting conversation today, and I'll let a couple of minutes go by to allow some people to shuffle in here as I get this watch party started. But I'm super excited for today. First off, because it's a friend of mine that I haven't gotten the chance to talk to in a while, but also because we're going to get some firsthand, on the ground explanations about things that we normally are only reading about in news sources or third parties. So this is going to be awesome because we're going to be able to talk to somebody that is directly on the front lines in one of the epicenters of this pandemic in Long Island, New York, with experience of being a local person. Growing up in Canton and going to Glen Oak High School, graduating from Walsh in 2018, and being a nurse in the local hospital systems. So, with that, I would like to welcome Miss Emma Angari to the stream. Emma, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
How does it feel to be on a live stream?
I think I'm going to stumble over some words and you'll have to help me out here, but definitely. I always worry that I'm like talking too loud. So if everyone's over there like that would be embarrassing.
No, it's all good. You're fine. It's a big thing. I've actually talked to a lot of people that they're in like media, and they do media for a living, and then they get on live streams, but it's a completely different ball game
Yeah.
when they're like on social media and stuff like that, because they're on TV or whatever else, they're like not really sure who's watching, but like on social we'll have people comment and say hello, like, and they're like, oh, like that's my aunt, or that's a
Yeah.
friend of mine is watching me right now. That's weird, but it ends up being perfectly fine. So I'm just going to get this watch party started here. It looks like we've already got 6 people that popped in to say hello. um,
Awesome.
and then we'll be good to go. Oh, it looks like Bree popped in to say hi. Let's see here. We'll go ahead and share this to a group. So how long have you been in New York now?
In New York, I've been here for 5 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks left as of today.
3 weeks. So what was the I can't math very well. So what was that for a contract then?
8 weeks for a contract. It's 2 months. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Now, did you just do that through like a travel nursing agency, or what was the process like to actually get up there?
Yeah, so I mean, you know Maddie Strasbaugh.
Mhm.
She's with Aya Healthcare, so she kind of just talked to me about it, and then as opportunities came rolling in, and she was hearing about it, she was just keeping me in the loop and
Gotcha.
got me, yeah, in contact with her recruiter. It was very easy, very smooth.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's super important to have like connections in those types of spaces if that's what you're looking to do.
Yeah,
Um, it's
absolutely.
definitely a benefit, having people that are connected inside of that travel nursing realm. I know a ton of people that are either been floats or other people that I've interacted with through my nursing career that have done travel nursing and absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I think it doesn't come it comes with its challenges. I think if you're someone that's a little bit stronger, confident, like outspoken, unlike myself, that's one of the challenges I've had here. But yeah, if you're confident in your skills and stuff, travel nursing, you'll have no issues. Travel nursing, no issues. Going into
no,
a new, hospital and whatnot.
right. Is that what you say would be kind of the biggest hurdle, was like getting to know personalities and everything else? I'm sure that there is a bunch of like travel people coming in and staffing units. It's probably a completely different dynamic than normal.
Yeah, yeah. I could go on and on about the challenges of
I'm
this,
sure.
but despite the virus, traveling for me is hard because I'm kind of like a soft spoken,
Hmm.
more just like an observer. So I observed for the first 4 weeks and now I'm starting to make friends.
You're like, who is going to be my friend?
Yeah,
You're like
right.
scouting people out over the course of 4 weeks, and you're like, I'm gonna talk to this person. I feel like
Yeah,
we're gonna be friends.
I definitely was that creeper, like around the little wow computers, just
You're like,
like who's cool, who's nice.
yeah, watching to see what people are writing down, who's interacting with who, what the clicks are.
Yeah, absolutely. Always.
So, all right, for those of you that are in the stream, I'd like to welcome everybody. Randy, how's it going? Courtney, Hayden, welcome to the party. Um, we are going ahead and going to get this conversation started. So, for those of the people that don't know who you are, why don't you just talk about a little bit of where you were born and raised inside of this area, where you went to school, and what got you into nursing in the first place?
Sure. So I'm Emma, and I was born and raised in Canton, Ohio. I have an older brother, two older sisters, loving mom and dad, and as of last year, I have a son who just turned 10 months 2 days ago,
Mm.
and a wonderful partner who's supporting me back home, taking on mom and dad role. So I started at Glen Oak High School for 4 years like normal high schoolers do, and then I went to college, and I started out exercise science pre-physical therapy and
Oh, I
switched
didn't know
that
that.
game. Yeah.
What? Okay.
Around year 2 I switched that into nursing. So
Mm.
um, that transition was probably one of the better decisions I've made in my life. And you know I always say nurses, like, the answer that pretty much everyone gives is you have to care. You want to take care of people, and you want to help people. And I think the reason why I'm a nurse is because it embodies everything that I hope to be, and what I think successful is taking care of strangers, despite what they look like or their background. And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, nurses, we preserve humanity, and yeah, that's a goal of mine. That's what I want to live by. So the
Right.
profession itself is something I've always just looked up to. So
Right. I agree. I think that me and you've had a lot of discussions about nursing in general, and I think that one of the biggest things is um, looking at it as a profession, not just a job. That's something that's a big thing for me when I'm talking to people that are thinking about going into nursing or they're new nurses on the floor. I actually just had an experience the other day where I realized that I wasn't a baby nurse anymore. Where I had a patient on one of the ICUs, and they were tanking, not doing super hot. They're in prone position, 100% on FiO2. Um, and if you guys, by the way, this is going to get very nursy. And if you're listening and you don't know something that I bring up, I'm not just going to explain like all of it. But if you have a question, just comment and I'll explain something like that. And so they were on like maxed on vent settings, all this other kind of stuff, and their pressure started tanking, right? So they're already on 30 mics of levo. So, and have gotten boluses. And I realized that I was had a cup of coffee and I was like sipping my coffee, just kind of staring at this blood pressure, like, I need some vasopressin. And I like started walking back to the resident's office to get an order for additional pressors to try to keep this person's pressure up. And I walked past another nurse, Katie, and I was like, Katie, I was like, is it a milestone in your nursing career when your patient is maxed on a presser, has already gotten boluses, you're about to add on a second presser, and it's like a nice calming walk, sipping your cup of coffee to go back to the resident's office to get additional presser orders? She was like, yeah. She was like, I'm pretty sure that is like the epitome of reaching ICU nurse level. Is just like,
yeah,
oh,
you
okay, I
graduated
know
from
what I
a
need to
year.
do. I just need to add this on and we'll get that fixed. And I
Yeah,
just
for
started laughing because I was like, you know what? In the past, I definitely would have crapped my pants if I
sure.
looked up and my patient's already on 30 mics of levo and their pressure is still 60 over something. And then I was like, no, you know what? I need to go get some more meds. Let's just go do that. And
Right.
those milestones in your career where you realize that nursing is more than just that job, but that's like where that profession really comes in, is that you care so much about the patients that you put in so much extra time learning all of this stuff and putting yourself on the line and interacting with them and learning all these ins and outs that you get to the point where you're so comfortable that you know what to do. I wouldn't say comfortable is the right word because you're never really comfortable when you're dealing with someone else's life, but like you get confident in the ability of, I know what I need to do in order to give this person the best chance. Um,
Definitely.
but that doesn't come if you look at it as just a job,
Definitely.
because you don't put in that type of effort for just a job, right? Um, so we made it through Walsh. We actually graduated the same year, 2018, right? And we both started working at a local hospital system. Um, you were in the step down world. I kind of stepped into the ICU world a little bit, but we actually both ended up joining the resource team. which for those of you that don't know what a resource nurse is, it's essentially a jack of all trades. Like we can float to a bunch of different units within the hospital. And I like to explain it as like we're the artillery of the hospital, right?
I like
And
that. I like that.
yeah, we're not on the front lines, right? But like when crap starts to get weird, they can call us and we kind of fill in the gap, right?
Right.
Um, Now, before we went live, you were kind of talking about how the resource team kind of prepped you mentally for what you've been facing up in New York. Why don't we talk about that a little bit, and then we'll start to dive into what New York has been like.
Yeah, absolutely. So with my first year being on 5 North, it was a neuro step down unit, and that floor is a very good learning floor, I'll say. And I just kind of wanted to grow, and so I got into the resource team, and I haven't gotten comfortable with that job yet. Being on a new floor every 4 hours, if that's the way your shift went, being switched to different units, having to get to know different people, different positions, and then obviously the different specialties, whether it be cardiac, respiratory, neuro, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that has helped me in New York, that I'm totally used to being uncomfortable in a situation and just being confident in my skills. The rest is teachable.
Right.
And just going back to that, like, this is a profession. As long as you genuinely care about people,
Mm-hmm.
the rest is teachable. You can't teach compassion, at least not quickly.
Right.
um, so yeah, you just genuinely have to care about people, and then, like I said, yeah, the rest is teachable. This NCLEX situation, people not being able to take that doesn't make you a good nurse anyway. So
Right. Yeah, it's like something that's ingrained in you.
yeah,
It's a part of who you are. It's a part of the personality, I think.
absolutely, it is.
Because I know some really, really smart people that are not necessarily the best bedside nurses that I've ever met. And I know people that have failed the NCLEX 3 times, passed it on the fourth try, and they're some of the most baller nurses I've ever met in my life.
100%.
Yeah. So if for those of you that are listening right now and you may be nursing students or you may be somebody that's struggling with that right now, don't base your entire worth as a nurse off of the NCLEX. That's a great piece of advice there. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of this letter that you posted um, about answering the call to go to New York because I think it just really embodies who you are and why you decided to do it. Um, and it's really what kind of sparked my interest in wanting to set this up in the first place because I think that there's a lot of people uh, that aren't really understanding how much effort um, nurses are really trying to put in and how much it like mentally is affecting us and our families and all of that other kind of stuff. And I think that this does a great job of kind of playing that. So this is a letter that Emma wrote on Facebook on April 7th, which I'm assuming is like right before you left.
Yeah.
It was the day that you left, maybe. So
Mm-hmm.
here it is. So today I'm off to New York. I've been consumed by the thought of this opportunity for a couple of weeks now, and I've thought, overthought, talked, over talked, and prayed and over prayed, if that's even possible. A great friend of mine once told me, you can't ask your creator for an answer and then go against it. My calling is to offer help. To my family of healthcare workers and to the ones I've yet to meet, I hope to offer strength and support in this trying time. I know that I will gain a wealth of knowledge and perspective from all of you. To my family, thank you for guiding me and loving me through my tough decisions. I hope to make you proud. To my love, Brandon, you have the hardest job of all, keeping our son Rohen safe. You are not alone because you have the most wonderful community of family and friends surrounding you. I will need daily updates on you and Rowan, pictures, and a nightly FaceTime call. After all of this, if Rowan's first words is Dada, I will take the L because you deserve it. And to my Rowan, if you think too hard about not seeing, if I think too hard about not seeing you until you're just 1 month shy of a year, I'm going to break down. I've been told that I'm already your hero just by being your mom, but I want to be your superhero. I love you. I will miss you, and you give me strength. Today, I'm off to New York as a young nurse whose sole purpose in life is to spread love for humanity. See you in a few. That was, I mean, when I read that, I was like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting my eye sprinklers to turn on today, but that was, why don't, let's just start there. We'll just start on April 7th and kind of move through there. What kind of immediately led up to that decision to go? And then what was that first day like realizing I'm actually doing this?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's 100% honesty. When the opportunity arose and I was talking to Maddie and I got in touch with her recruiter, it was like money symbols, right? So
Mm,
everyone has seen those ads. If you're a nurse on Facebook, if you ever even typed in travel nursing into your browser, Facebook probably knows. Um, and those opportunities start popping up and you see money symbols.
right.
So with this virus, people losing jobs and stuff, all I could think of, what's my plan B? Say my partner loses a job and we're supporting our son, and what if I lose my job? And so that attracted me. But at the end of the day, when I was offered a job, I said no, because I said no amount of money could ever make up for the time lost with my son,
Mhm.
um, or put my health at risk. So yeah, I backed away from it, and I experienced some of the worst anxiety I've ever experienced that night and the morning after. And my sister, my oldest sister, Sarah, she always says, when you go against your heart and you go against what God wants you to do, your whole world becomes off balance.
Amen.
And
Hallelujah.
yeah, and I truly, truly felt that to my core. So it was that next morning, I reached out to my recruiter without talking to anyone, and I said, you know what, let's do it. He was like, you can jump on the next plane. You can get out here. Actually, your contract can start on the 13th or the 15th. And I was like, no, I need to start now. I want to start right away. So yeah, it was, within days, I took the first contract day that I could. And the weight that was lifted off my shoulders was incredible. The day on the 7th, I wrote that post, and
Mhm.
definitely came from my heart. But I was sad to be leaving my family, but I was so sure that I had to go, that there was not really any looking back, or no regret.
Right. Right. Yeah, those moments where you have to make a decision, right? And it's like a pivotal one. I mean, it's something that's like huge in life in general. Um, I've definitely experienced a couple of those pivot points in the last couple of months. I mean, the one that I'm really going to point to is my decision to get out of the military. Because anybody that has known me for any period of time will know that ever since I was like 5 years old, I've been super either excited about that uniform or proud of my grandfather or wanted to wear that uniform. It was a part of my identity, down to like the soul, right? And so taking that off felt like I was ripping myself in half. But the biggest thing that I realized is like I was borderline super anxious and depressed the entire month of December, trying to decide whether I was going to get out or not to pursue Apex full time. Um, which is a completely different can of worms because people think I'm off my rocker for being a nurse and doing this. But like you said, the weight that's lifted off of your shoulders when you actually make the decision to follow your instinct. Because my mom would always say that, like, that voice that you have inside of your stomach is God trying to tell you something, right? That you know what you're supposed to be doing, and anytime that you decide that you're going to try to move, you have like two options, and if he wants you to go left and you go right, you can go right, but at some point down the line, you're going to get smacked super super hard, and you're going to end up going left anyway. So she was like, it's easier to choose to just go left, even though it might hurt a little bit, and all of this weight will be lifted off. You'll feel like you're heading in the right direction rather than potentially avoiding heartache for like 6 months or so and then just getting body slammed onto the other side.
Yeah, definitely.
The fact that you were like, experienced that massive bout of anxiety the night before and or the night after you kind of decided to pull back in the morning of is just, I mean, a true testament to like where your heart's at, because it's not just you saying that you want to take care of people. I mean, it's so deeply a part of who you are that it started to tear at you.
Yeah.
Thought of not going and helping.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they, when I was working at Altman, it was like, our census was low and like this virus is hitting different communities in different ways. In our situation, it was people were fearing the hospital and not wanting to come in. So, yeah, not a lot of nurses were needed. So when I was getting granted time off and things like that, it was definitely like I had a guilty feeling like, oh, here I am sitting in the living room with my son watching some TV while nurses in New York and healthcare workers in New York and that community was just so overwhelmed by the
Mm-hmm.
virus. Didn't feel right. I feel like I was
Yeah,
where I needed to be. Yeah.
like you're underutilizing your talents type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So you made the decision to get on the plane. Um. What was it like being at the airport and like actually getting on the plane and like taking off and starting to head to New York? What was kind of going through your head on that flight?
Yeah, funny story. So I booked my ticket, right, maybe like 48 hours in advance, and I had 24 hours to figure out, like, my flight was canceled on me.
Oh,
They were
geez.
only they were only getting 2 flights from each state, I think it was, into New
Hmm.
York. So they canceled my flight, and I actually ended up driving. So it was a long drive,
Oh,
and
geez.
it was tear filled, lots of music playing,
Who rode with you?
just me, myself, and I.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I was alone with my thoughts for a solid 7.5 hours
that's a scary
getting to
thought.
New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes being alone with, I think that there's a lot of people that are realizing they have a lot of muck to sort through in this social distancing world because they're being forced to take some alone time and to be introspective. And that
Yeah,
can be a really weird place if you haven't done it in a while.
yeah, 100%. Some people's comfort zones are surrounded by people and
Hmm.
definitely just never being alone with your own thoughts and stuff. And 100% that's scary. Yeah, it can
Yeah.
be scary.
So you're driving up there and jamming out to, I'm sure, some like Camila Cabello and uh, you know, maybe some other tunes, and crying and trying to figure out where your life is at. But underneath all of that, as you started to get there and you checked into, whatever room you're staying in and everything like that, prior to your first shift, what was going through your mind before you were like went into the hospital for the first time?
Yeah, so I was expecting an orientation. How do you use Epic? How do you I was expecting like I'm a full-blown new nurse, teach me your ways, and that was um not happening. So the minute the nurses showed up, all the travelers, we hit the ground running. My thoughts, what were my thoughts? I'm such a changed person. Like it's a month later and I feel like I'm so changed. But what were my thoughts going into it? I didn't know what to expect. Um, I was very scared. Obviously, with the isolation, with quarantine alone, you're not seeing people. But here I am in a new state, new hospital, not new bed, everything. So, I think all I can say, there was a lot of fear. But when I actually entered the hospital and met some of the nurses that I'm going to be working with, it was all good. It was all
Mm.
good. We were all there for the right reasons. So
I was gonna ask that. Like, have you noticed that there's a lot of people there outside of like potentially seeing the money symbols at first, that there are a lot of people that are in the same boat that you were, that were basically like, okay, I saw the money symbols, I tried to turn it down, and then I felt like I was getting ripped into a million pieces, and now I'm here.
yeah, I think I expected to be amongst seasoned travelers, but actually a lot of people were in the same situation as they might have been furloughed and had to think quickly and get an opportunity. they needed a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So some people were really not forced into the situation, but some people really needed this opportunity. And then others were seasoned travelers, and they are like they are kind of like, ooh, where's the money at kind of thing. And or then you have like the ones like me who have families back home, and they did not necessarily think this was the right thing to do, but
Mm-hmm.
they had this force behind them that was like, I don't even, did I even decide to come to New York? I question myself every day. I don't think it was my decision.
Right.
I think
Yep.
like someone just pushing me, like this force behind me. So
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely all sorts of stories, but definitely nurses that feel the exact same way as I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've noticed that, I mean, just at the local level, there's a lot of people that I've been, kind of in this new space coordinating with, trying to talk to, figure out like motivations and everything like that. It has been absolutely insane to me the number of people that are looking at this as if they're not, like, they don't have a choice, that they're being pulled. They're not having to push themselves. They're being pulled in a direction.
Yeah.
And they are so focused on trying to help the people in their backyard. People delivering groceries to like elderly people in their neighborhoods, people that are like willing to pick up critical supplies for people that they've like never really talked to, but they see them on this list on a Facebook group that they need this stuff, and it just happens to appear on their front porch.
Yeah.
Like the amount of humanity and empathetic connection that's been happening right now is absolutely been insane. But I think that it's like all of us are realizing how important the human to human connections are, and how important it is to take care of each other, not just in the hospital systems, but in like the communities in general. And that feeling, like that force, like you're saying, that's just kind of pushing you in this direction, is
Yeah.
like so overwhelming that people don't even know why they're doing half the things they're doing. They're just doing them.
Yeah. And how refreshing is that? I mean, amongst like tragedy, like at the end of the day, we're all just people just trying to figure it out together. And
Mm.
like, who are we without relationships?
Right.
And I think, something that has been exposed that people just really need to value their relationships after this and slow down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, make sure that you're taking time to have conversations with people. And like
yeah.
the beautiful thing that I've seen too is that people have been so willing to learn from each other, that they're like opening up their eyes to like people that they may have had like a rocky relationship with in the past. And now they're watching how selfless some of these people are, and
Mhm.
they're having these open conversations and being willing to learn from each other because of all of this that's going on. And that's, a silver lining that some people are not wanting to look at, but I and try to focus on as many of the silver linings as possible. And one of them that I've seen is that people are taking the time to smell the roses and realize that there's a lot of really, really important people in their lives that they have not been dedicating enough time to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Now,
It's beautiful.
for the nurses that are on the floor and the dynamics and everything like that, we're saying that there's these, you were expecting seasoned travelers. There's a lot of people that were in your position that had to think quickly on their feet, or are not, I don't know, what did they tell us in nursing school, that you need to be like 5 years as a nurse or something like that before you're like a veteran,
Yeah. Yeah.
or whatever. Uh, is that like the experience level kind of all around like that 2 year range ish? Or do you have some more of those experienced nurses helping out on the floor
Um, you're talking about as travelers, right?
as travelers? Yeah,
As travelers, most of them are young.
younger.
Yeah, like 25 to 30 years old.
Mm.
Yeah, a lot of young ones.
And
So a lot of baby nurses trying to make changes in the world. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's cool to see that that's the call that got answered.
yeah.
And then for a reference point for all of our medical personnel that are listening, what type of unit are you working on?
When I first came, I was floating.
Okay,
So I was on all step downs or tellies. And then
that
of
had to have been
course,
an interesting ride floating up
yeah,
there.
yeah, that was not what I expected, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. I was there to help, so wherever they needed me is fine. But now I have a home unit, and this particular unit now is actually getting transitioned back into a non-COVID, which is amazing. Like we
Mm.
see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like it was amazing when they said that we were going to start receiving only non-COVID. So we have a floor specified for them. But yeah, that's the kind of unit I'm working on. All of them are on heart monitors and continuous pulse oxes regardless. But yeah.
So let's dive into like floating when you first got up there,
Mm-hmm.
right? We'll just, this is kind of where I'll just open up the doors, right? This is, I've been interjecting my opinion and kind of guiding the conversation up till now, but I think we're at a point where I just kind of want you to take the reins. So we're in the hospital. You made it through your first day. You kind of started to get to know the nurses and stuff. You were thrown into a position where you're now floating in a hospital that you've never worked at, around people that you've never worked with, in the middle of a global pandemic. Just start wherever you want to start.
Okay. I guess I can walk you through like what a typical day looks like. For me, I'm at a hotel that is amazing, and they offered a shuttle. So they shuttle us to the hospital around 6:45 in the morning. And you get there, you go to the nursing office as a traveler because you are floating, so you need to find out your assignment. So we get there, and at that point, especially in the beginning, though it was 97% COVID for this hospital in particular.
Wow.
That 3% was labor and delivery. So the hospital was all
COVID.
coronavirus. Yeah.
Right.
So you go to the nursing office, you get your N95, and then you just, you ship off to that unit. And when I tell you like that hospitals were overwhelmed, like I don't have the words to express how overwhelmed they were the first 2 weeks that I was here. But something that the world needs to know is that New York nurses are tough and resilient, and they're out here they are just killing it. So they took me under their wings. Not one nurse was wrote me off or anything. They just took me under their wings, showed me around. The teamwork was amazing. And so that's a typical day. You get your assignment. At first it was, 6 to 7 patients. Now it's getting down to, it started winding down to 4 to 5. And now we're at a beautiful 3 patients to 1 nurse. So, the amount of travelers that came and showed up, like our resources we finally have the help that we need. So, yeah.
Wow, that's a crazy ratio to start out on, like an all COVID hospital.
Right.
6 to 7 patients to 1 nurse is, that's a lot for people that don't know nursing. You get I'm an ICU nurse. I'm spoiled, right? I only have to deal with 2, maybe 3 if I'm unlucky. They're a little bit more unstable, but
Yeah.
6 to 7 patients is, that's hauling ass your entire shift. There is like no break period with that patient load. You are moving all day.
Yeah.
And just the protocols for gowning up, gowning down, or donning and doffing your gear and everything like that. That's insane. So that's you, they took you under their wing, and the New York nurses are kind of forming you around. Did they move you throughout the day as a float, or did you just report to that unit and then you were there all day?
Luckily only one time around I think it was around 11:30 they had me go to another unit, but that wasn't bad and it was what I expected. But ever since then it has been 1 unit per day, and then now I literally have 1 unit every day that I expect that I'm going to. I don't have to stop in and get an assignment. I know where I'm at every day now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
sense of here.
So with that 97% COVID stat and everything like that, 6 to 7 patients, having to like not know where you're going for the first however many weeks you were working there and everything like that. Just taking care of those patients, even at the step down level. What was that like dealing with those, just with coronavirus patients? You have all of this stuff in the news that we see. You have all of these things like constantly being pushed out. From your eyes, what was that dynamic?
There's so many details that I could get into about how overwhelming it was, and to get people to understand how virtually impossible it was to keep up with all of the demands of what the patients needed with this virus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like even just the little things that you take for granted, like, you know, everyone has an IV pole and everyone has the Alaris pumps. That wasn't the case for the first 2 weeks that I was here. You know, ICUs needed those pumps more than step downs, so most of those pumps would be shipped that way. And we basically, you know, even if people needed fluids and stuff, sometimes it wasn't doable. So actually, the biggest obstacle that I faced was I knew what this patient needed,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very hard mental. It was very hard to stay mentally strong during that. Yeah, 100%. I have like nothing else to say about that other than to know what you needed to do to help this person, but you couldn't. Was one of the harder things I had to face within the first 2 weeks of being here.
Yeah, I'm sure, especially if you end up losing the patient
Yeah,
over something that you knew could have been fixed,
yeah,
just from lack of resource.
yeah,
Um, because I know, I mean, that's stuff that happens in the hospital system on a good day. You
right.
know, that you weren't able to get a hold of something quick enough, or that something changed too fast, and you know
Mm-hmm.
something blows, and the surgeon isn't able to get there on time or anything like that, and you lose a patient. And you're like that you beat yourself up over that.
Yeah,
I definitely have had plenty of days getting off of a float shift, you know, moving from CBSI to SI to MI within one shift, and
yeah,
then losing a patient at the end of that shift or something, and just sitting in my truck and crying for half hour or
yeah,
so before I can even drive home. So I can't even imagine
yeah.
being in that position.
Yes, very, very difficult. I think this my saving grace was that you know everyone around you, physicians, techs, dietary, respiratory therapists, physical therapy, occupational therapy, housekeeping. Everyone around you is just trying their best.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, like a little bit of a note, you know, when I find myself getting caught up on social media and looking at different videos that have gone viral, um, the one thing I'll say is, you know, the nurses or the medical professionals that come on and after a really long, hard day, they're emotionally high, and they want to point out the negative things that have happened in their day
Mm-hmm.
and all the things that could have been better. Just keep it in perspective that it was an absolute crisis. The hospitals were completely overwhelmed. And although mistakes did happen, um, it's not because people didn't care.
Right. Yep. I 110% agree. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very. I saw something the other day that just, you know, for lack of better phrasing, really pissed me off. Um, and it was this theory that's going around that like healthcare professionals are corrupt, or that we're like forging things and doing some stuff like that. And I instantly, I think, just as a nurse, and I know that a lot of the people that I'm friends with that are nurses feel this inside of their guts too. They're like, how dare you question how much I want to care for patients,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And like, are there bad apples in every tree? Yes. Is that
Right.
unavoidable? I think so. Is every single health professional out there sideways motivated or focused on dollar signs or anything like that? I am inclined to say that the vast majority are not.
Right.
I'm more inclined for the people that I have seen, the people that I know. I'm more inclined to believe that the majority of us genuinely care about people, and that
Mm-hmm.
we really just want to help the patients to the best of our ability. And that in a situation like this, like you said, the hardest thing to deal with is knowing what to do and not being able to do it.
Yeah.
Um, so we made it through those first 2 weeks, and now you ended up getting a floor that was a home, and kind of were going there on a daily. Um, throughout that entire time, were you able to get your nightly FaceTime calls and say hi to everyone back home?
Um, yeah, sometimes on work days it's a little hard, but we've been really good. Like I'll FaceTime in for bath time, which makes me feel like I'm home with
Mm.
him. And those are really important to me. And yeah, my community of family and friends, there's like no one else like them. So I've been able to talk to them every day. There's really not a day that I go through without hearing someone's voice that I love. So yeah, we've kept that as honest as possible.
Yeah. Well, and that's good. And when you are the kind of person that does so many positive things for others, that's almost always returned, right?
Yeah,
And that's something that I'll plug. It is another reason why I wanted to talk to you today, because it's an opportunity to be able to give back to a lot of the things that you've given to other people over the time. As soon as I said that I was bringing Emma Angari onto a live stream to talk about things, I mean, Meredith Boylan, like right off the bat, was like, okay, I need to watch this because she's awesome and I love her.
no,
That was the general consensus from pretty much every single person that I talked to about bringing you on, was that I can't wait to hear her voice because she's such a light wherever she goes. So know that that's the perception, and that it's not no surprise to me or pretty much anybody that you have the support system that you do, because of the
thank
type
you,
of person that you are.
thank you.
Um, so you ended up getting a home, right? And now you're hanging out with some more of these nurses, and still, let me see. You said that you didn't stop creeping over the wow until about week 4. So we still have about 2 weeks left of silence, before you
Right.
started making real friends, I guess. But once you got the unit that was that home with, um, was it still like 97% COVID at that point? Or what was the dynamics on that floor that you decided to, that I'm assuming that they assigned you?
Yeah. Yeah. They were still, when I got assigned to that unit specifically, they were still 100% COVID. The transition, as you can imagine, is really hard because you have to play the game of you don't want a nurse taking care of a COVID positive and a COVID negative. Um, you don't really want them to be across the hall from each other. So that this transition into a non-COVID floor is interesting because you have to not let your guard down.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you do one test and they say they're negative doesn't really mean that they're negative.
Right.
So it's been it's been hard. Sometimes like it still happens, like the little errors here and there, misjudgments of, you get 11 hours through your shift and then you find out, 30 minutes till you're about to pack your bags to go home that they're going to test this person now. So it's
Hmm.
still, yeah, it's still a hard fought. I don't know. I can't explain it any other way, but when they start turning off the negative pressure rooms, it gets a little scary.
Right.
You're not really sure how you're going to transition out of this point in time where
Right.
you're, all of a sudden like, oh, they're just COVID negative patients. Are you sure? It's hard.
Yeah. One thing that I was intrigued about with, I mean, now that we're kind of talking about this transition from COVID into non-COVID and stuff like that, have you seen like the articles about like the antigen testing and the antibody testing for
Yeah.
people and stuff like that up in the area? What has been your thought process on that actually being up in New York right now?
Um, I think it's really cool. I'm like pretty excited about it. I think they mentioned offering it to the healthcare workers, and it should be offered by the time I am like getting ready to come back home.
Hmm.
So I'm super excited about that. I hope that it's as accurate as possible. But I think any increase in knowledge that we can gain from this is good. So I think
Right.
it's great. What do you think?
I mean, I've been working really closely for everybody that's been paying attention to us. We ended up partnering with a company called Cenevex, um, from the Netflix documentary Pandemic, and they're developing antibody therapy right now. And one of the things that they've been doing, they actually just formed a partnership for the Universidad de San Carlos in Guatemala, and they're doing convalescent plasma therapy. So they're taking plasma from COVID positive patients that have survived, and then distilling it down and matching blood types and reinfusing it into sick patients. to basically give them a treatment right here, right now.
Yeah.
And so there are ballers. I mean, like this group of humans is some of the most intellectual humans I've ever interacted with. Uh, and knowing that we have teams like that out there that are like kicking ass and taking names in the biotechnology world brings a lot of hope
Yeah.
to a lot of people, knowing that they're out there trying to find, treatments and cures and preventative measures and everything
Right.
else. I didn't realize how deep that realm of the world was. Like I had just only been exposed to, physicians, nurses, stuff like that. I completely forgot about like PhD level immunologists and virologists and the lab people. But holy crap, like
Yeah.
they I would there's some of them where I'm like, man, I would rather have you taking care of a family member of mine than some of the docs I know. But I
That's
think
exciting.
that I think it's interesting because of the amount of people that have already tested positive for the antibody in their bloodstream that
Mhm.
didn't really display symptoms and stuff
Right.
like that, which is kind of freaky with the whole asymptomatic transmission thing. And that's one thing that I constantly have been reinforcing with people over this entire thing is that a virus that may not affect you at all could potentially kill somebody else.
Right.
Um, and that's kind of going to lead me into this next like little section, which is what have you seen any trend in the type of patient that you've been taking care of, or has it really been kind of a widespread of people that have been affected as far as like age or comorbidities or anything like that?
Yeah. I think so there's always those outliers where you're like, holy crap, you're young, you're healthy. Why are you presenting like this? Why is it getting to you like this?
Hmm.
And then I don't know, you can talk about all those different strands and like what strand are we talking about? Did you get the bad one or the not so bad one?
Right.
But what I've seen and what's really upsetting and sad is the Hispanic population and the African American population are taking a very large hit
Hmm.
um, with this virus. Yeah, like that's really upsetting to see, and it's pretty prevalent. And nobody had to talk to me about that for me to recognize it. Like if 3 out of the 4 of my patients are Hispanic, and the other one's an elderly white man, the Hispanics are having a lot harder time with this for some reason.
Right. And that's
So,
stuff where it's just like we're going to have to figure out what the disease process looks like. Was it proximity? Is it
mhm,
socioeconomic factors? Is it, education level, or is it something genetic? Was
right,
that what did it? There's a whole bunch of different things that we can dive down that rabbit hole on. I was just curious
yeah,
if there were any types of trends like that.
yeah,
Um, so with the like the interaction between the doctors and the um, nurses and all the ancillary staff and stuff like that, like you said, you like everybody is trying their best and just trying to do what they can with what they have to take care of people.
yeah.
Um, have there been moments that like stick out inside of your mind when you like witnessed everybody come together, whether it was for something positive or it was to grieve together or anything like that?
Yeah, every day,
Hmm.
um, every single day. Like I think if I can go back to the first week that I was here, there's been a huge transition. The first 2 weeks were overwhelming, and then it started to taper off, and everyone could kind of breathe again.
Hmm.
Um, but teamwork is everything. I think the first 2 weeks it was like the nurses. We talked about this a little bit, Jan. The nurses wore a lot of different hats. It's as if they picked a profession that could do everything.
Hmm.
And they all of a sudden were like, we don't want 10 people going into this room. We need to limit exposure. So let's pick a profession that can just wear all hats. So, of course, that's the nurses.
Yep.
Okay. So the nurses were doing the jobs of dietary. They were cleaning and turning and washing their patients, proning patients by themselves. They were getting handed notes from physicians for results, for test results, and just reading them off to the patients.
Oh wow.
Um, we were we were doing social work. We were doing their assessments. Um, Physical therapy no longer was working with the patients, so we were ambulating our patients and doing exercises and being taught how to do those things.
Mm.
Um, and I can tell you that there's much greater success when all hands are in the pot. Um, the minute I think that you pick one profession to be exposed after exposed after exposed, it can create some angry feelings and resentment. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that when we brought the teamwork back into it after those first 2 weeks I was here,
Yeah.
um, the success rate and patients going home and the discharges versus admissions, like there was a day and night difference. So
Yeah. Really kind of bringing like a new level of appreciation to that collaborative team
yeah,
effort type of thing.
yeah,
I
100%.
uh I think that I guess not ironic, but I think that it's interesting that out of all the professions that got pegged, that like nurses were the ones that were kind of dictated like, oh, these are the ones that can handle all of these different job fields. Um, I've had conversations with plenty of residents. You know, I have friends that are PT, friends that are OT, friends that are all this other kind of stuff. And one time, my friend that's a physical therapist said, like, I was walking on the ICU and like I have a PhD or a doctorate, right, to be a physical therapist. And I realized I had to ask my nurse's permission to even work with their patient. And I was like, yeah, you do, because we know them inside and out. And like, we
Yeah,
don't want you touching our stuff if the patient is wonky. Like,
right.
um, and it's, I was at one point in nursing school, right? And you knew me during this time that I like was planning on just going to med school. I was tired of like nursing. I didn't like med surge at all. I didn't feel like I fit in on the step down. I needed something different, which ended my home ended up being the ICU. But one of the big reasons why I didn't go to med school is because I really felt like we are this buffer zone, that we are like the jack of all trades, like I said with the float pool, but we know enough about each individual job field to be dangerous. And like
Mm-hmm.
stuff is really critical and things need to happen. We know enough about respiratory therapy to learn how to operate a ventilator quickly. We know about dietary stuff and we've had to take courses on that. We can do that. And we like obviously we're not physicians, but we know enough on that side to make recommendations to physicians based on things that we see
Yeah.
with the patient. And that's like this entire pandemic, I've watched nurse after nurse after nurse step up and either be a part of a team, help other nurses out on the floor, help docs that are like newer, like residents and other stuff like that are scared out of their minds, calm them down,
Mm-hmm.
um, and band together. And it's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing to watch from my end. And it has to be this, like what I've seen multiplied by 15,000 from where you're
Yeah.
sitting.
Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, no one has backed down from a challenge or helping one another. I haven't seen that once. I don't think I will.
Yeah. So for those of you that are just tuning in, I'd like Marissa Turek stopped by. She said hello.
Hello.
Lindsay, Courtney Borman, how's it going? Corey Ramsey, Jennifer, Mr. Dolph, pleasure. Serena Draper, Hendershot, how's it going? Taylor Blades, Sean Archer popped in here for a little bit. He's actually an ER nurse.
Oh, cool.
Um, so we had quite a few people popping in. We're having a conversation right now with Emma Angari, who's a nurse currently in Long Island, New York. And we're just about to continue talking about what it's been like working in a team of nurses in a hospital that was 97% COVID patients just a few short weeks ago. So we're to the point now where we're starting to transition, right? Where floors are getting negative pressure rooms shut off. You're starting to get that patient population moved over, and you only have a couple of weeks left on your contract. What would you say is different about the way that you thought this experience was going to change you when you went up there versus how it's actually changed your perceptions about things, where you're currently sitting?
Yeah. So I think when I first came out here, it was like New York needed me. So I'm gonna go. But now that I've been here for a few weeks, I'll kind of change that around. And I
Mhm.
needed New York. They have totally given me a new perspective with healthcare, with how to treat a patient, with how to treat your coworkers. Um, yeah, I mean they've completely changed my perspective on healthcare. But like, what's the biggest thing I've learned? Like,
Mhm.
probably I think probably the teamwork thing is number one. Like when I think about the number one thing that I can take from this is that teamwork is everything. The interdisciplinary team is very important. Not one person can do it. Not one profession can do it. We all need each other. Um, and also that your mental health at the end of the day is your responsibility.
Mhm.
Uh, Nobody is going to take that responsibility from you. Nobody wants to because nobody can.
Right.
Um, So with all of this, amongst the chaos, amongst knowing what to do and not being able to do it because of resources, um, you have to find your balance and your happiness within yourself. And yeah, like I said, your mental health is ultimately up to you to keep healthy. And what you're feeding yourself and what you're reading and what you're
Mhm.
speaking has to be your truth. Um, I don't think I would have been able to get through this experience if I sat on Facebook behind a screen all day watching different YouTube videos or some of the other negative things that have come up. So I think that New York has changed me in that way for the
Right.
better.
Right. Now, for those of people that are like, I'm hoping that people will be able to watch this conversation and understand what it's actually like the perception's been like for the healthcare staff that's been up there. That yes, it has been tough. They're sticking together, like that are really pushing themselves and stepping up to the plate and everything like that because there is so much negative crap floating around. And that's something that Apex has really tried to pick up is just dispelling as many myths as possible as fast as we can. It's why I started this whole COVID support group and stuff like that because initially when all of this started, I saw meme after tweet after video after everything that was just non-backed studies that was, somebody took one paragraph of an indictment and then put that out there and like neglected to talk about all of the rest of it. And the people that sit behind the screen and just consume that all day, I never realized how important it was. Like my dad used to tell me all the time as a kid, input equals output. And so like all the way down to the music you choose to listen to on a daily basis, what you put in is what comes out. And it's been such a hard thing. Like I've bitten my tongue to the point where it's like bleeding a couple of times with people because I need to understand and empathize with where they're coming from. The biggest thing that I saw that was a quote and I ended up reposting it says, "We may be all in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat." Right.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's getting affected differently by this. Some people are essential workers and they're still working, and so their issue is exposure and the fear of bringing it home to their families. That's a completely different thing than somebody that has gotten laid off and their partner has gotten laid off and they're trying to support a family. They're not afraid of exposure, they're afraid of starving. There's business owners. I've watched 4 different businesses in Canton that have been staples of the Canton community shut their doors because of stuff like this. So, what's really been getting under my skin lately is that regardless of whether this is a pandemic, a plandemic, a conspiracy, a disease that, you know, may or may not have been manufactured in a lab, it's something that was purposely released, a bioterror weapon, all of this other BS that's been floating around, it is affecting real people in real ways, and it's going to affect us for a long time. So we can either waste our energy looking at social media, pointing fingers, and trying to figure out what the overall conspiracy is, or we can look to our left, look to our right, and try to take care of the people that are right there because they're the ones that are going to matter in the long run anyway.
Yeah.
And like I'm in this headspace right now that I don't know where all of that just came from. That was just like something that needed to come out. I guess I was not planning on going down that rabbit hole on this call. Um, I mean, you can hear it in my voice. I'm like shaking a little bit, but it's something that's been driving me absolutely bonkers
Yeah.
because
I couldn't have said it better myself.
being able and talking to you about just the way that you've looked at being in New York and the other nurses that are up there are real people that are sacrificing time with their families going up, and regardless of what your stance is politically, economically, conspiracy theory wise, whatever it is, there are real people putting their lives on the line. There are real people dying, and there are real people that are closing businesses and potentially starving in their homes. So we are all in different boats. We're in the same storm together, but we are all in different boats. And you need to be able to empathize with those people and be aware of what you're saying and be aware of what you're spreading, because you can either spread light or you can spread dark. There's two options, right? You can either educate or you can chastise. So
Right.
I'll hop off of my soapbox there and we can kind of get back to New York. But so now your unit is officially, transitioning into the non-COVID floor.
Mhm.
Was there like a rave party that happened when that announcement was made? What was that like on your unit when everybody realized that you were transitioning over to a non-COVID floor?
Um, there was there was a lot of different emotions. I think some of us were like, well, how do we be non-COVID nurses? Like we almost like forgot how to take care of other patients.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I could walk into their room without a mask and gown
yeah,
and face mask, and
yeah,
I
that
can
felt
smile at my patients again.
right. They know what I look like now.
Right.
Yeah, that felt really weird. Yeah, that transition I think made most nurses happy, I would say, because then you know things outside of the hospital walls are also getting better. Um, so that was a beautiful transition. Again, like I said, it comes with a lot of fear as well, with just letting your guard down and things slipping through the cracks,
Mm-hmm.
and wondering how we're going to recover from all of this and go back into it's not going to be normal like it was before, but our new normal. And yeah, but no, it was a really exciting day when they announced that on our unit that we were going to be getting non-COVID patients, patients that may have put off some of their health issues because of this virus. Now they're coming and getting the help that they needed, and that's refreshing to hear. So
Yeah. Good. Um, One thing I kind of want to rewind a little bit before I kind of went on my little soapbox monologue there. You mentioned mental health and taking care of yourself. What are some things that you've done to make sure that you're taking care of your mental health while you're up there?
yeah, I think learning. I'm not a very good. I'm not technologically sound. Like even this live stream, I was like, so how are we going to do this using like the keyboard?
Right.
Uh, but no,
You're
just
not the only one. Like every people that are consider themselves techie, when I send them just a link, they're like, "So all I have to do is click on it?" Or
yeah, right, right.
but it really is that easy. If you're listening to this, it's not that bad. I promise. You can come hang out, and I'll just send you a link, and you click on it, and life's good.
He's right. It was smooth. But yeah, what have I been doing? I've been trying different food places in New York because most of them are all still open. So I've downloaded the app Seamless and have been indulging in some very, very good pizza and fine
Ooh.
dining, all in the comfort of my hotel.
Hmm.
And I've done a lot of yoga. My sister, who lives in Australia, puts on like Zoom yoga meetings.
Who lives in Australia now?
Sarah, the oldest one.
What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When did she go to Australia?
Living the dream, January.
Jeez. Okay, that'll be something we can talk about that offline.
Right. And then I have a coloring book, which, wait, can I show this? Can we cuss a little bit? Because it's cuss words.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have a coloring book
That's
that I've been drawing in.
Oh man, yeah, I've seen those are like the adult like ones.
Yeah, yep,
Did it,
yes.
are they like is it the bubble designs, or like, because I know that some of them are just like a bunch of tiny little bubbles that you fill in colors and stuff, or is it more of like an actual?
It's like, let me just show you some little
That's
pieces.
awesome. That's so
Yeah.
badass.
a motivating swear word coloring book. It's amazing.
that's that's like the perfect mixture of relaxation and just like what we're actually thinking as nurses
Right.
24/7 is just
Right.
like constant cuss words flowing through our minds, I feel like.
Yeah,
But
definitely. That one's very
and then it's
therapeutic.
it's all hidden behind a very professional smiling face.
Yeah, no, everything's fine. Everything's
Yeah.
fine here. Yeah, and then just talking and venting and leaving space for myself to be alone and cry if I want to cry or laugh if I
Mhm.
want to laugh. So just feeling all the emotions, taking it all in, and
That's
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 yeah,
been a huge message. I think that what you just hit on right there is super valuable to people. If you have emotions, let yourself feel them. Like if you want to laugh, don't feel bad about laughing. If you want to cry, don't feel bad about crying. If I've definitely broken down a few times over the last couple of weeks,
yeah,
right? And I know that us as dudes, if you're listening to this, have a issue sometimes with letting the waterworks let loose. But I pinky promise that you'll feel a lot better if you just let it happen. Put
yeah,
on some sad song that makes you feel all, warm and nostalgic or sad inside, or reminds you of a person that you look up to, and then just let it fly. You'll feel 1,000 times better afterwards.
yeah.
Um,
Always.
and don't be afraid to have a sense of humor either. I just had a conversation with my old commander on base, and we talked about Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And that book is, Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp, and he wrote about all of the messed up things that were happening to them in this concentration camp. And he said that the one thing that they weren't able to take away from you was your internal identity of who you are, and that humor was present even in a concentration camp where everybody was being treated as subhuman. He's like, we weren't even humans. We were below human. And that humor could still light a candle in that abyss and take the pain away for a couple of seconds. And I know that like the running joke for the longest time, is that we as nurses develop this dark, twisted sense of humor. But it's not, I don't think it's dark and twisted. I think that it's our method of being able to relate to each other because we see the pain that our coworkers are in. And that the only way to really get through that is to try to get somebody to chuckle,
Yeah,
and if we can make each other laugh, if other people were to listen to the conversation, they'd be like, I don't know if we should be laughing about that. But,
yeah,
for those of us that understand, sometimes it can be the only thing that makes you smile that day.
yeah, yeah. Everyone's coping mechanism's different, so do you do what you got to do?
So, we're transitioning over. You have what? You said 3 weeks left?
3 weeks left.
3 weeks left on your contract.
Yeah.
Um, and then you'll be driving back,
Yes.
right? So you have your vehicle up
Yes.
there. What are you looking forward to most when you come home? Or actually, you know
That's
what? I'm not going to even make that a what you're looking forward to most. Give me a top three. That way, we're not leaving anybody out.
okay. The easiest one is just like hugging my son.
Mm-hmm.
100%. I could cry thinking about that. Number two would just be maybe letting myself go back to my comfort zone of my home with my family 5 minutes away, back into the community that I love, back to Altman
Mm-hmm.
because Altman's amazing. And I have taken a lot of things for granted being out here, noticing the struggles and just the different ways of doing things in a hospital. Altman has things, they're very organized. I'll just put it that way.
Right.
Altman's doing something right with that. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to be back in my comfort zone where I'm surrounded by people that I love and who love me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And we're definitely ready to welcome you back for sure. And so ready that you ended up winning a luxury suite for two at your
Oh,
Vineyard.
that was so nice.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
something that I noticed, and I was like, oh hell yeah! Like I don't know who did that, but that's awesome.
I don't know either. I called my mom and I was like, what the heck? And yeah, so I have no idea who did it. Whoever, if maybe potentially if you're watching, probably not. But if you are, that's awesome. Thank you so much. That was, I like cried my eyes out. And then I was like, I can't wait to have some wine.
Yeah, yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
um, and then did I? We're gonna kind of get into some more like the little fun things at this point. So for those of you that are listening right now, if you were here for a lot of the hospital stuff, then you can choose to hang out with us for a little bit longer. But the majority of the hospital conversation could be over. So first off, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come on. I know that there's definitely other things that you could be doing with your time other than spending an hour on a live stream talking to me. So I appreciate it, and I know that our listeners appreciate it as well.
Yeah. Thank you. This is great.
Um, but on a different note, did I see that you got a Almost Heaven ice cream tub delivered?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you have to explain
Almost
that.
almost heaven knows like how to get to me, how to like really pull at the heartstrings. That was my first job. I always joke like that with the boss, Todd Truex. I always joke with him that he gave me my first stressor in my life.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, I started working there when I was in high school, like
Mm-hmm.
I think 15 and a half, 16. And I love that job. I was there for 8 years and worked in management, and they knew that my favorite flavor for all 8 years was raspberry chip.
Mm-hmm.
And so Todd texted me when I was out here in New York, and he was like, I'm going to send you a care package. And I was like, honestly, don't even bother if it's not ice cream. And I was completely kidding.
Right.
But then, of course, he sent a freezer of a quart of raspberry chip that I devoured in one night. And I did not share it. He did tell me to share it. I did not. So I apologize.
Oh man, one
It was
night. Yeah, that's
so
good
good.
though. That is, I
Yeah.
mean, Almost Heaven has some really, really good ice cream. I mean, for those
Oh my gosh,
that
the
are from
best.
the North Canton area, for sure. And raspberry chip is definitely one of their better flavors.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. They got some pretty
They're
good
making
chocolate peanut butter too. But,
I have to agree. I have to agree. I don't know if there's a flavor that I don't like there. And I know that they're like expanding their business too. So they're killing the game right now amongst all of this uncertainty. They're still pushing forward with their amazing ice cream.
yeah. And
Yeah.
they don't just have ice cream, right? They have other things there as well.
They were doing hot food at the home at their store, the original store, and I think they may have stopped. They might have to correct me if I'm wrong, but at the new shop, I believe they're going to continue with hot food. So
Cool. Cool.
yeah.
Um, so let's see here. I'm curious too. Your brother is a radiologist,
Yes.
right? How has he been through all of this?
Yeah,
Have you guys been in
he
contact?
yeah, of course. David. Yeah, he's a radiologist at Altman. Specifically, he does the breast care center,
Mhm.
mammographies, things like that. But he will sometimes also transition and work with like some of the facilities like Orville, Altman Orville, like all the different ones,
Mhm.
and read like the CAT scans, MRIs, all the general testings as well. But he, in March, with all this happening, I believe it was March or April. I could be wrong. I think it was March. Um, he had to take a voluntary, like personal leave, I guess, because there wasn't enough business, right? So they
Right.
didn't need all the radiologists. So he did voluntarily do that. And then when he got back, which he's back to work now, I think things are picking up, but they did send out an email to all the physicians, him included, that if they needed someone to work as a hospitalist to prepare for a peak or a surge,
Mhm.
that would he be willing, basically, and of course he would. So that would have been really interesting for him to
Mhm.
have to be a hospitalist instead of a radiologist in a dark room with
I
no
was gonna
human
say, yeah,
interaction.
having to come out of the dungeon
Yeah, exactly. Like
and
I don't know if
interact with humans.
he definitely would have had to wear sunglasses, like.
Make
But
sure
no,
he goes tanning before he comes out of the hole.
honestly, I don't even know if he knows how to talk to people anymore. But
Oh my.
but yeah, that was a different. This whole virus thing has obviously affected everyone, but yeah, he was affected too. And good thing that Ohio just kept it in control, and he didn't have to be a hospitalist for
Yeah,
a month.
that's a good point. You kind of left like right as things were starting to pop off. What is
Mm-hmm.
like, obviously people that are in Ohio haven't been able to experience both, Ohio versus New York and stuff like that.
Mhm.
looking back and like seeing how Ohio handled a lot of the stuff. Um, what are your thoughts on how Ohio handled a lot of the stuff?
I think we were ahead of the game in a lot of ways, in most ways. Um, so I don't, yeah, it was so refreshing when we hit like, I think, what did they say? Like the end of April, we were
Mhm.
expecting a surge. And then it was like mid May, which I know we're not there yet. But I feel like we just stayed below the curve. And that's amazing. I get the email still, obviously, like the updates of, 14 cases in
Mhm.
house and stuff. And I'm looking at where I'm at, and it's much more than that. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, there's no comparison in how New Yorkers live versus Ohioans. So, like, there's a bunch of differences that cause New York to be in a vulnerable situation.
Right.
But regardless, Ohio, yeah, did a really good job.
Yeah.
Really proud of Ohio.
Yeah. And that's something that I try to point out to people where I'm like, listen, we said, and not we, but like epidemiologists, immunologists, virologists, people that are exponentially smarter than I am and have been in this field way longer than I have, said at the beginning of this, we're going to implement these. If we do it right, nothing's going to happen. And if we don't do this, bad things are going to happen. And I think we're in that point now where people are like, look, nothing happened. And I keep referring back to like, look, we were saying if we do X, Y, and Z, nothing's going to happen. And now we're in this point where nothing happened and people are like upset that there wasn't a massive peak and the hospital systems weren't overwhelmed and everything. But I
Yeah,
keep reminding people, look at other places that actually did get overwhelmed.
yeah,
Like we could have been in that position. And that's where I kind of take it back. I encourage everyone, do your own research, do your own analytics, don't take anything at face value, look at who's funding who, look at the actual studies,
yeah,
do as much research as you can to form your own opinion. And then
yeah,
wherever you end up is fine.
yeah,
What I don't think is okay is if you look at one YouTube video and now that is your truth.
yeah,
That's not how life works. And I've been trying to educate people on like, here's a website that you can go to look at NCBI studies. Here's a place where you can look at case studies. Here's a reputable source for this. Here's a reputable source for this, to encourage people to do their own research, because
hmm,
I don't know what the answers are. I'm just as in the blind as the next person. So whatever your opinion is, when it comes down to it, that's okay. We're all allowed to have different opinions on things,
right,
but do the research and base your opinion off of something that you've actually taken the time to look into.
yeah,
So, with all of that, Emma, I'd like to say finally, for those of you that are just now tuning in right now, this has been an awesome conversation with Emma Angari, who's a nurse from local hospital that decided to leave behind her 10-month-old son and her partner and go to New York on an 8-week contract to battle COVID-19 on the front lines, in one of the epicenters of the pandemic in Long Island, New York. Emma, thank you again for coming on and sharing your story with everybody. I know that it's definitely provided a lot of value. And for those of you that are just watching right now, don't worry. As soon as I exit out of the live stream, give it a couple of minutes. You'll be able to go back and rewatch it from the beginning. So,
I appreciate you so much, and thanks for using this platform to just spread good information and raw information.
no problem. I appreciate the compliment for sure. It's been a interesting ride on my end for sure, but it's conversations like this that make it worth it. So,
Definitely.
all right. Till next time, everybody. We will be going live again this Tuesday at 7 p.m. with the Kathy Yaros for another episode of hashtag Let's Talk About Something Else, because we are all tired of talking about COVID-19. And the following Wednesday, we will be talking to our friend John Dietz, who recently just had shoulder surgery and made it through perfectly fine. So we're all grateful for that. But we will be giving advice to new parents and parents that have been around for a while on raising children. So if you want to tune into that, that'll be Wednesday at 7 p.m. And we have some really cool episodes that'll be being released on the Apex podcast in the next couple of weeks as well. Stay tuned for those. Until next time, I'm Jan Almacy, and keep chasing that apex.